Hey guys, it is Shadows Woman. I'm here to present to you guys the week 2 of the 2014 season for League of Legends free-week champion rotation. This week we have Ashe, Pantheon, Kennen, Xin Zhao, Sona, Nocturne, Fiora, Lulu, Jace, and Quinn and Valor. Going to be going through each champion one by one, telling you a little bit about them, the items you can expect to get and see on them, as well as the roles that they generally fill and what lane they are generally in. First, let's start off with Ashe. She is mainly played as the ADC that's generally the ranged attack damage champion down at the bottom lane. She will go ahead and build items such as a Infinity Edge, Bloodthirster, Phantom Dancer, and then it varies from there. It's a situation by situation basis. Other items that you could see on her would be a Phage, a Guardian Angel, as well as maybe a Static Shiv. You can also see other items such as a Black Cleaver, a Last Whisper, or again that Guardian Angel. It all depends on the situation. If you want more mobility, you would go with the Static Shiv, but you always want to get that Phantom Dancer first, because that will allow you to move through units without having to use an ability such as Ghost. Ashe's passive, it allows her to generate a crit every 60 seconds or so when she's out of combat, and will be guaranteed crit on her next attack, and every time she's out of combat, after a short duration of being in combat, I believe it's about 3 seconds after getting out of combat, she will start to build up stacks of Marksman. When she reaches 100 stacks, you get a guaranteed critical strike on your next attack, and then go back to 0. And it is affected by your crit chance with a static 6% buffer just passively before you get any sort of crit items. Again, the general rule you can expect to see her play is the Marksman or ADC down at bottom lane. And again, her items would be Infinity Edge, Bloodthirster, Last Whisper, a Phage, Guardian Angel, Phantom Dancer. Those are all very standard on Ashe. Next we have Pantheon, who's very potent at the top or mid lane. He's pretty beefy, focuses more on attack damage and resistances to sustain in fights rather than focusing on high damage, high crit, and no sort of health or resistances whatsoever. He's going to be in the fray a lot and trying to dish out some damage while absorbing some at the same time. His passive allows him to generate a shield every mixture of 4 attacks, 4 spell casts, or, either one of those. You can go ahead and toss your Q 4 times and get a shield that will absorb the next basic attack from a tower or a champion. Also, large jungle minions, I believe. But Pantheon, as I said, you'll be in the fray a lot, and you'll be seeing items such as a Black Cleaver, a Ravenous Hydra, Maul of Malmortius, maybe a Randuin's Omen, a Bloodthirster, and maybe a Phantom Dancer. That Phantom Dancer is a huge maybe. It all depends on the situation. Whether he needs to get some sort of attack speed or crit, if he needs more health, he'll go for something like an Atma's, which is not the best, but it's decent. Maybe a Sunfire Cape as well. That does not go amiss on Pantheon. And again, you can expect to see him in the mid or top lane, just being a big bruiser and being up in your face at any given time. Then we have Kennen, who can be played as either AP, which means ability power, or AD, which means attack damage. If you go ahead and build ability power, you'll be seeing items, or you'll be getting items such as a Landry's Torment, a Ryla's Crystal Scepter, a Rabadon's Deathcap, an Abyssal Scepter, Sorcerer's Shoes. Those are pretty standard items on Kennen, as well as a Zanya's Hourglass if you're going ability power. If you're going attack damage, you'll be seeing and getting items such as a Phantom Dancer, Infinity Edge, Bloodthirster, and the like. Anything that really adds any sort of attack damage and health. You do not need ability power if you're going AD and vice versa. You do not need any sort of mana regen as Kennen because you're all energy based. Your ultimate, it goes ahead and puts a nice AoE around you. Any enemy caught within it that's a champion gets, they take moderate to severe damage depending on your AP, and they also get stunned when they hit 3 stacks of your passive. I believe it's 3 stacks of your passive at least. But it really depends on which way you want to play Kennen. Do you want to play just, I'm going to stand back and auto attack, or do you want to be up in the fray and be in the mix of all that sort of damage? It is really up to you. Kennen excels at any of the 3 lanes, bottom, top, or middle. You will very, very, very rarely see Kennen go into the jungle. So bear that in mind. Again, if you're building AP, Abyssal Scepter, a Landry's Torment, Rabadon's Deathcap, and Zanya's are your bread and butter. If you're going attack damage, you're going to go ahead and get a Bloodthirster, maybe an Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer. Static Shiv does not go miss on Kennen either if he's building that way. And forgetting the other item, it splits your attacks into 3 bolts pretty much, but I would not recommend getting that. It's a gimmick item, to me at least, and I would recommend building Kennen AP and going either mid or top. Next we have Xin Zhao, who excels at either being in the top lane or being in the jungle. Just like Pantheon, you'll be getting items that have high damage and high armor or magic resist with some health. Now with Pantheon and Xin Zhao, they share a common item with the Ravenous Hydra and the Sunfire Cape. Those 2 items are almost standard on any Pantheon or Xin Zhao. After that kind of differs a little bit, the Maw of Malmortius is also very standard on both of them as well, and the same thing with Nocturne, which I'll talk about him in a few minutes. But Xin Zhao, you want to focus a little more on, that attack damage side. Getting an item such as Bloodthirster, then maybe getting a Phage and a Frozen Mallet. The Phage you can build into a Trinity Force if you so wish. I do not recommend it, but you can do it if you so want. It doesn't really hurt you, and it does help you in a way, but it's not recommended. All you need is that Phage and a Frozen Mallet, and you're really kind of good to go. You do not get an Infinity Edge on Xin Zhao, you do not need it. He's more there to just do high amounts of damage without the crits, and to absorb some damage as well. Next we have Sona, who's a support. She'll generally be played at the bottom lane. Items you expect to see on her would be maybe a Crystal Scepter, an Athene's Unholy Grail, a Runic Bulwark. Let's see what else. You can expect to see a Shrelia's Reverie. I believe that's still in the game. I could be mistaken. On that one. Also, a Ruby Sightstone is also good on Sona. Those are general items you could expect to see on her being played as support. You don't really go for much AP. Granted, your abilities do scale with AP, but you do not want a whole heap of it. With your ultimate being a a vinyl stun, like a skill shot stun pretty much, in a small area in front of you or wherever you aim it, and it scales with AP, you're more there to be support and to heal your teammates, give your teammates buffs, and not take the kills, and support your teammates and save them from death than anything else. That's why you'll be seeing stuff like a Runic Bulwark and a Ruby Sightstone on her, because you're meant to just, go ahead, ward, support your teammates with giving them vision, give them armor, give them magic resist, give them health regeneration, and that's really it as Sona. Next we have Nocturne, who, as I said with Xin Zhao and Pantheon, they all share kind of the same items, and same thing with Rhea actually too, with a Ravenous Hydra and a Maw of Malmortius. Nocturne can also get a Sunfire Cape if he's going to be, if he's kind of set as the, secondary tank, so to say. Items you can expect to see on Nocturne, other than the previous mentioned, would be a Black Cleaver, a Last Whisper, maybe if you don't get the Black Cleaver, can also get the Ravenous Hydra, as I said. You can also get a Bloodthirster, and maybe an Infinity Edge, depending on how good your team is doing. I do not recommend getting that Infinity Edge unless your team is severely ahead. Again, another item that would be good on Nocturne would be a Phage, and maybe a Frozen Mount as well, because you want to be able to slow your enemies, give yourself, that movement speed buff, so you can go ahead and continue to chase them down and kill them, or even get away if so needed. And Nocturne excels at being in the jungle. And I mean excels. You very rarely see him in lane unless he's covering for another teammate who just had to go back to base. Next we have Fiora, who, again, like Nocturne, Xin Zhao, and Pantheon, all share kind of the same item set, with that Ravenous Hydra, kind of the Sunfire Cape, Maul of Malmortius, and then it differentiates a little bit for Fiora as well. A Last Whisper is also pretty decent on her, and it really depends on how your team needs you to build. If they need you more of the tanky role, then you're going to build items such as a Randuin's Omen. If you're going to be, filling in the role of, damage, you're going to be getting maybe a Bloodthirster and that, that Phage and the Frozen Mallet. It all really depends at that point what your team needs. But the Maul of Malmortius is pretty standard, and a Ravenous Hydra pretty standard as well on Fiora. And you will see her mostly in the top lane, sometimes in the jungle, but mostly in the top lane. Next we have Lulu, who's a support. Again, same items such as Fiora. You'll get those, the Ruby Sightstone, Athene's Unholy Grail, maybe a Crystal Scepter as well, the Runic Bulwark. It all depends on how the game is playing out. If you can get some more magic resist, go for, certain items. And Abyssal Scepter doesn't go amiss on Lulu either, because a lot of the times you'll tend to be focused and be in the fray when you don't want to be, so that Abyssal Scepter does come in handy. But other than that, again, same guidelines as Sona. The the Ruby Sightstone, the Runic Bulwark, etc. And again, she'll be played mostly support, so in the bottom lane. Next we have Jace, who can be played either in the mid lane or in the top lane. It very much depends. You'll very, very, very rarely see him be played in the bottom lane. In the top lane or mid, it doesn't matter which, you're always going to be going for, particular items because they suit your champion. So a Manamune, which is a very rare pick for most champions, a Manamune is actually pretty good on Jace, regardless of after they nerfed the Tear of the Goddess and Manamune and Muramana, or Manamune, to not allow you to spam your ultimate to go ahead and get your stacks of Tears of the Goddess up quicker. You now actually have to cast spells that cost mana to get the stacking mana buff from the tier. But it's still a very good item on Jace, and then it all depends. Does your team need you to build tanky? Okay, then you stay in melee form with your ultimate, and you get something like a Maul of Malmortius and maybe a Sunfire Cape. If they don't need you to be tanky but still, pretty beefy, again, that Maul of Malmortius and Infinity Edge. And then a Bloodthirster after that. It very situationally depends. But items that you could also see on Jace, Phantom Dancer, a Guardian Angel, those are both very common as well. It all depends on the situation. And again, he is mostly played in the top or middle, mostly top, however. And last but not least, we have Quinn and Valor. The reason why they say Quinn and Valor, it's actually one champion, but your ultimate makes you go from ranged to melee, but it changes the way your abilities work. You have the same abilities. With Quinn, your abilities keep you at range. When you're Valor, your abilities have you staying in melee. Your Q as Quinn allows you to send Valor out and technically gouge enemies and that blinds them and does a significant amount of damage. When you're Valor, it does the same thing. You gouge them, but it's in a small AoE around you. Your W, when you're Quinn, you can shoot a You can shoot Valor up into the air pretty much and see a giant radius around you for a brief moment for about a second and a half. And that is a very long cooldown, but it has a secondary ability where every time you get a kill with Harrier on a target, which is your passive, you gain attack speed, or every time you attack a target with Harrier, rather, you gain attack speed for a short duration. Your E as Quinn brings you, knocks an opponent away from you, brings you to them, knocks them away from you, you do some damage, and you go to your max range from them. When you're Valor, it brings you to that opponent and knocks them away and brings you to them. And when you're Quinn, your ultimate transforms you into Valor. When you're Valor and you pop your ultimate, or the timer goes away on your ultimate, you let down a hail of arrows and you do massive AoE around you, and the lower the targets are in that AoE, the more damage they take. Quinn and Valor respectively both skill with AD, but you also want a small mix of AP mixed in there as well, so a Trinity Force does not go amiss on Quinn and Valor at all. That being said, you'll also see items such as that Infinity Edge, Bloodthirster, and the Black Cleaver, or most likely the Last Whisper. And that really depends on the situation again. Do you need some health? Okay, get maybe a Guardian Angel. I know it's not health, but it will keep you alive. The other side of it is, okay, do you need more damage? Okay, maybe get, a Zeal or something along that line. And you'll mainly be seeing Quinn and Valor being played in the bottom lane as the ranged ADC. Or you might be seeing her being played in the middle to go in and just bully whoever is there out. She trades very, very well with most other champions. There are some that she doesn't trade well with, but most she does. And that is it, guys. That is the free week champion rotation for week 2 of the 2014 season. If you guys have any questions about the champions, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. If you have any suggestions on how to maybe reformat the rotation, me presenting you the rotation rather, let me know in the comment section down below. If you want to see more videos from me, go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to go ahead and upload a couple of casts, hopefully in the next few days, of Dota 2. And by the time this video goes up, I will be streaming Dota 2 and be casting Dota 2 over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/shadowswom. There's a link in the description down below. And yeah, if you guys, again, go ahead and subscribe if you want to see casts of League of Legends and Dota 2. If you want to see more League of Legends updates, anything League of Legends or Dota 2 oriented, or just, me raging at being bad at video games. And having a good laugh at my own expense with me. My name has been Shadowswom. I will talk to you all next time.